which is the company I founded, ran for 15 plus years, sold the majority of it to private equity almost 8 years ago. Yeah, which is now approaching, I think, 20 billion in annual revenue.
Oh,
And the company has done incredibly well. It needed that next level of CEO.
guys, how is it going? Jim Manning here with another Passive Wealth Show episode, and we are talking about the next chapter. And you know what we do is, and we have over 130 partners that are either financially free or on the path to financial freedom. We talk a lot about building passive wealth and investing in a way that you can do it from your couch and not do any of the work. But that begs a question though, like when you get to that next chapter, what happens next? How do you spend your life? Do you just go to the beach, kick up the feet, and relax, or do you, or do you get a little crazy like the guest I have on here, Matthew Porter, and run for lieutenant governor, even though you've exited a company 8 years ago and start another business? In Matthew's case, he's has two business partners, and that all three have exited businesses, and they kind of help people do what they did and probably do it better since all three of them have had these larger exits from companies. So, guys, we have an amazing guest. Like to call him a newer friend of mine. We've had lunch and kind of met a couple times now, but Matthew Porter, thank you for coming on. And thanks in advance for your time on this. So, can you just share a little bit about your background, and let's get started on the interview, man?
Yeah, sounds great. Jim, thanks for the very kind intro. And looking forward to talking to you and looking forward to talking to your audience. I'll start off with what I always start off with, and that is who I am. And I always say I'm a husband, father, and friend. I'm very clear that's what I want on my tombstone. I'm very clear that is what matters to me. And I try to live my life in service of that. So from a background of what I've professionally done, born, raised, educated here in St. Louis. I've been with my wife since I was 16 years old. I'm now 47 years old. I worked at IBM Global Services when I was younger in college. Ended up being one of the first 200 employees at a company called Worldwide Technology, which,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which is,
That's a big deal right there. Yeah.
yeah, which is now approaching, I think, 20 billion in annual revenue.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. Wow.
Left there, went to a startup that failed and then left there and went to a software company that was acquired. And then I got to the point where I think we really kind of want to talk somewhat about, and that is Contigix, which is the company I founded and ran for 15 plus years as the CEO founder, and then sold the majority of it to private equity almost 8 years ago.
And we actually met at a conference where you're talking about it, and you were able to sell and like be done. You didn't have any sort of package where you had to like work for a couple of years, right? And you were able to, am I remembering that right? Or was that Aaron, your business partner? Yeah.
No, you are remembering it exactly right.
Okay.
I sold on October 30th, 8 years ago, and it was a Sunday. And I walked into our company on Monday morning. We were in kind of a hold period because they had to go through and had to verify all the signatures on everything. It's got to go through the escrow checks and everything after you sign. For those of you that have ever sold a business before or acquired one, it's not like in the movies where you shake hands and then the deal's done. This was 90 plus days that led up to this. We actually had a series of transactions that all executed at almost the exact same time as part of this too, and couldn't tell anybody on Monday. My executive leadership team knew, the team didn't know. The team, the rest of the team, my coworkers, my teammates did not know. So I couldn't sit at the office for 8 hours. I
Uh,
faked sick and yeah, I mean, these are people I love and respect. I can't walk around and not tell them what's going on, especially because we took to heart the fact that this was people's livelihoods and we wanted to be respectful of that. And then on Tuesday, on November 1st, I informed the team and I stuck around for about an hour because I couldn't take it anymore. By that time, we'd already hired a brand new CEO. They'd already done strategic planning together. We had built a pretty in-depth, detailed transition plan that was already in execution. And then I celebrated my 40th birthday that weekend and tried to drink all the bourbon in Kentucky with a couple of friends, and we did not succeed. So, we're looking for bourbon years old that's out there. My buddies and I did not succeed.
Are you so wow. So how's your do you ever check in on your baby and see how it's doing nowadays? How's it been doing since you left?
Well, I stepped out of operations. I did actually. I'm still a large shareholder of the company. I did step to our board. I serve as our vice chairman. I serve
Okay.
on committees such as, our budget committee and a number of others, which basically I still have lots of influence on the company. I don't have the day-to-day operations of it. I especially have lots of influence on where the culture is. And the company has done incredibly well. It needed that next level of CEO. I don't know if you want to talk about it now. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm a firm believer in a lesson that that a mentor passed along to me, and I've never actually checked to see if this is a real thing. I just kind of trust the
Mhm.
moral of this story at the end of the day. And my mentor said to me, asking me the question, do you understand why the Steve Jobs and the Larry Ellisons of the world are so well known? And I had some reason I probably gave, and he replies back and he says, no, it's not that. It's that their 100 miles are very, very long. And I asked him to explain. And he goes, well, back in the day when the river boats would go up and down the Mississippi, there was the captain of the boat, and he may even be the owner of the boat. When the boat got to treacherous waters, because this is before sonar, when they got to treacherous waters, they would pick up somebody who would serve as captain maybe for the next 50 or 100 miles, because that new guy knew that section of the river better than anybody else. And so then he'd take that boat down and then he'd take another boat going back up because he knew that section so well. So my mentor's point was the Larry Ellisons, the Steve Jobs of the world, their 100 miles was really long. It was the entire river. And I was comfortable with the fact that my 100 miles was getting it from me and my business partner sitting in a supply closet to where it was 8 years ago when we sold. That we needed a new captain to take it to that next level. And since then, we've even gotten a newer captain that is now taken it the last 4 or 5 years.
Gotcha. So the wisdom of kind of knowing what your skill set is, what you're good at, and then, being humble enough to get out of the way if you're the one holding the company back.
Correct. Organizations only grow to the skills capability of the highest ranked person.
Was that a realization that someone brought to you? Was that a realization that you came to know? Did you go screaming, kicking, fighting, like or like how did you come to that awareness? Because I mean, this is your baby we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that you probably heard me say in that panel that where we met really for the first time was I I long ago separated my identity from my role, which is probably part of the reason I start off any discussion about this stuff as husband, father, friend, because those are actually more identity. The role of CEO was a role. It didn't mean I didn't give it my full heart and soul into it. It was still a role though. And I would never put that on my tombstone. Um, I will tell you that connection of identity, if you own a business, can become a hindrance for somebody acquiring it because you're no longer asking them to buy your business. They're asking them to buy part of who you are and your identity. For
Mhm.
me, I knew what I cared about and I loved and I really wanted to drive and lead. And I knew I was for my time period at my development at that moment in time, I had hit where I needed to now step away. We needed somebody to take it to the next level. We needed somebody that had different skill sets than I did. Listen, I can sit in a room with a bunch of people that have Stanford MBAs and they may be able to turn a dollar into five. And I know for a fact that unless they're entrepreneurs, all of them are sitting around looking at me going, yes, but I don't understand how you went from $0 to $1. They'll never figure that out. They're the people that take it from one to three to five.
Oh, yeah.
And we both have a role to serve in that overall timeline. And I'm okay with that. I love that. I love that.
Well, what's wild about it too is like, we talk a lot about the passive investing. Like, if you find the right who, it solves any how. And like, like if you want to be a real estate investor, there's ways to do it from your couch where you don't have to do any of the work. You just find an expert needs a partner and the money's a valuable thing, right? But like but I think there's an ego, like being a guy, like I want to be the guy that has all the answers, and if that's how you do it, well, you're also the guy that's doing all the work, right?
Yes. And as I learned from a customer many years ago, actually, I should say prospect, who didn't become a customer
Hmm.
because we were doing a presentation and I had all the answers. And while I believe my answers were all correct,
Yeah.
the prospect said to me afterwards, after we lost the bid, I go, "Will you give me any feedback? I'm imperfect. I'm a human being. I want to learn." And she said to me, "There's only two outcomes that are right. One, you have all the answers, and now I'm I'm dependent upon you, not the company, you, Matthew. Or two, you were lying. I don't think you were lying. I would rather have had you be lying."
Hmm.
So the reality is that I had a great team that knew how to do their jobs. I just need to get out of their damn way.
Yeah.
I felt like, to your ego point, I felt like I didn't have all the answers.
Yeah, so our existing COO in my organization, like Matt, I hate to admit this, guys, but I'm gonna just be real with y'all. At one point when he came on, he said, "Jim, you don't know all the inner workings like you did when it was a 5-person company. It's bigger now. I would rather you go grab a tennis ball and throw it against the wall and literally do nothing than what you're doing right now in the chaos you're creating in the company." And oh man, that hurt. And oh man, at the same time, it was such a relief knowing like, okay, I got a team member that can handle it. And you just get out of his effing way, you know. Absolutely. Well, hey, we have a limited time here, and I think
Can I
there's
share
two.
one thing before we skip off this? Because
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
so I know that's not supposed to interrupt, but I just want to talk about this real quick because that's the thing, Jim, that I learned that I've come to learn and believe that there are 5 to 7 things that everybody has in their genius zone, and it is different.
Mhm.
And then there are thousands of things that you could do, I could do that we're just going to be horrible at, like embarrassingly horrible. Um, for me, I'll just be clear, dancing is one of them. But the but the crappy part, if I may say, is that there's about 20 to 25 that are in between those two buckets, and they will suck your soul dry doing those. And that's why I refer to them as the devil's vortex. You can put all your time, energy, and effort in and your soul into, and you'll only maybe, just maybe, be goodish at it. And here's the crazy part. You're not going to like it. You're going to just be goodish at it. But there is somebody out there that she is a genius at it. It's in her genius zone, and she is going to be phenomenal at it and love every moment of it. That is an ego driven thing that I had to get over with, that I can't be everything, which is, by the way, you and I will never talk about sports because that is I don't want to even pretend that's in my devil's vortex. So,
Oh, that's great. Yeah, you were absolutely right. And it's funny is like I heard people talk about it, but it just took so long to like become aware of it and actually like do and implement it. I don't know why that's so difficult, but it's one of the most difficult things as an entrepreneur. Okay, so we're limited on time. Your time is so crazy valuable. There's two things that I think we really need to make sure we get to. One, you're an expert at exit strategies on businesses. Okay. You have a lot of advanced knowledge. I want to get to that second though. Okay. So stay tuned, guys. Make sure you listen to the whole episode. Um, but then also, first, can we dig into a little bit of this? Hey, you have this fantastic exit, and then like what you on a personal level went through with that, and what your calling is now, and how you're looking to contribute, and why you're doing it. And so let's get into your story a little bit on. So 8 years ago you sold oh my gosh, now I'm getting nervous. You just told me how to pronounce this before we clicked return. Contigix. Yes, I got it. So 8 years ago, you sold that, and so walk me through what went on in your head, how you handled that emotionally, and why you are where you're at now. Like,
yeah, our private equity was gracious, and they asked me at some point, "Do you want to stay?" And kind of is like, not as a chief technology officer or CEO or even, maybe president-ish type of role, but chief visionary. And I'm born, raised, educated Catholic. I remember when we actually had two popes alive at one point. I also remember that one of the original pope, the more tenured pope, had stepped away because while we may have two popes, we only typically have one pontiff. And I knew for my people's sake, I couldn't be there. That was not going to be fair because I would not have given that CEO, that new CEO, the ability to define what he wanted. He'd always feel like he was under the gun, especially since I was on the board, which kind of makes me his boss. Like I couldn't be his peer or he'd be my boss 361 days a year. And then for the 4 board meetings a year, I'm his boss. That just makes me his boss. So I decided to really step away and let him lead, and we prepared for it. I had a mentor at the time who was a really good guy, and he said, listen, I'm going to help you with this process, but you have to promise me that you're going to take some time off, that you're going to step away from everything. And I want you to read a book called, Success, or called Halftime. It's a guy named Bob Buford. Bob Buford kind of really coined the term success to significance. And while there are religious overtures in parts of the book, I would encourage people to take a chance and read it because the message can be, the religious part can be stripped away from it. And what Buford talks about is people really weren't after success. They were after significance. And that book hit hard to me, especially since it was so aligned with our family's mission statement, which starts off with, we have a debt to those who came before us and an obligation to those who come after. Goes on to say we maximize, our life and potential with our integrity and grit. And we do all this together because we're stronger together, mostest. So those kind of collided, and I realized that I needed to do something else. But I took 6 to 9 months, almost a year off to do nothing and kind of let myself recharge from that. I was gracious enough to have people that coach me that said, you cannot have your identity tied up into the role of CEO. So to me, walking away from my baby was a good thing. I mean, it was a good thing for them and it was a good thing for me. And so I took a year off. And the first thing I really did was I came back and I was serving as conservator trustee of somebody else's company. There were shareholders that were in the midst of a lawsuit, and the court system, judge, arbitrator put me in place because unfortunately those shareholders were going through one of the situations that is what's oftentimes referred to as the 5 Ds that cause involuntary exits, and that is disagreement, where shareholders collide. So I was able to actually hopefully give them space and oxygen in the room so that they could not be forced into an involuntary exit. And I consider that a blessing and a gift to me. And I hope it was a gift to them.
So, so you have your year off. You're ready to. I guess you're hungry to do something, and you step into a situation like that. Like, I mean, you could have like toe in the water. I mean, that's like a head first dive into the deep end right there, Matthew.
Well, they were in a situation that if somebody didn't step in, the employees were probably all going to lose their job right before Christmas. And I couldn't conscious let that happen. And the reality is I donated the money that they paid me to charity. So I got to say, listen, I'm removing all conflicts of interest for this. I'm going to donate the money to charity that I was getting paid to do it.
Wow. And so is that a theme, like really kind of protecting, like you've kind of mentioned that twice now, people's jobs and team members and really looking after them. Like, have you always been that way, or is that something that you had to learn?
I have not always been that way. That lesson was instilled in me by my dad. There's a story I would tell the people about this at Contigic because I wanted us to think about what we did there as not just flashy blinky lights in a data center and cloud computing system, because we were a technology company running cloud systems. I wanted them to think about it as somebody's mortgage and somebody's livelihood. And that came about from my dad. When I was 16-ish years old, before I met my wife, I was dating another girl and my car broke down. And I wanted to borrow my parents' car because I had a date that night with this nice young lady. And I asked my dad, I said, hey, can I borrow the car? And he says to me, that's the car your mom and I take to work every day, because my parents both worked in the same factory. And I just nodded, yeah. I'm like, why are we asking questions about your job? I need to go out on a date. And he uh he says that car's our livelihood. My dad never cursed. And he said, you do not F with somebody's livelihood. Now, I took the car. The young lady probably thought I was more nervous about her and the date. I was nervous
What
that
is the
my dad's
car?
gonna kill me. Because if he can't make it to work, he doesn't have a job, I mean, might as well get to prison and get some free meals and shelter because he's gonna kill me. But that's what instilled it in me. And I really do hold that to this day.
Oh, wow. And then, okay, so then like you felt called to, hey, come in and help with it's the people's livelihood. And then, okay, so then that ended, and then, like what happened next? Like, did you go back and take some more time off, or did you get into to something else, and why? Yeah.
I went to Clayco, multi-billion-dollar construction company, as their chief innovation officer. Went there, reported to two gentlemen. One is Bob Clark, who's the founder, and at the time he was CEO. He's now founder and executive chairman. And the president of the company, who's now president, I think president and CEO, a guy named Russ Burns. And that was because they needed somebody to help them figure out what was going on with anything related to technology in construction and innovate on that. So that included everything from IT to our virtual design and construction group. And so I came in to do that and really truly help them turn around. From there, I actually got asked by Jim McKelvey of Square, now Block, who I've known for now probably close to 10, 12 years. And Jim asked me to come and help turn around Invisibly, which was a startup that he funded, Peter Thiel and Founders Fund funded. They'd raised about $30+ million. It was in a situation where it really truly needed to be organized, turned around. And then after that, after serving my time there to help Jim get that turned around with that amazing team who are still doing extremely well, I ended up actually going to Empower Me and helping them scale that from 200-ish teammates to about 3,100 that we had done inorganic and organic in the course of about 21 months. So you're talking about massive growth, 15x growth in barely that many months, just slightly more than that many months. And then I went to a company to help turn around their development and do blockchain stuff, not crypto, blockchain stuff to measure carbon offsets on our planet. Basically kind of bid the ledger for carbon and environmental emissions on the world's cap table. And then about a year ago, I left that after trying to get that turned around and took some time off. And there we end up at this now crazy company called Ianova, founded by two other successful exiting entrepreneurs, of which the total we've probably raised collectively over $750 million in private equity and venture capital.
Wow.
Kept one job for 15, 16 years, and I've served in 4 or 5 different roles in the past 8. I was making it a long time,
Yeah, that's good. If we did a personality assessment, maybe varieties in there, like that this guy likes a little variety.
I like to step in and help, and I like to get it to where somebody else needs to take it to the next level. And that's what I love.
Okay, so all right, we're kind of getting on time here. And you have so much knowledge on the exits of companies. I want to make sure we kind of get into that a little bit too. So you know what? I don't know if I'm not even gonna do it service asking you a question here. Just tell me about it. Like what's important? What do we need to know?
So I'll quickly start with this. This company came about, Ianova. The company came about with Aaron Stone, Ross Toohey, and myself because each of us have had exits in the past 7 to 8 years. Aaron stayed on as CEO after his first exit, private equity. Then later on did a recap and exited out. Ross stayed on when his company, 2E Creative, was acquired. And he stayed on as basically a C-level exec, and his job was to acquire other companies. All three of us in the past 12 to 18 months have been approached by lots of entrepreneurs, CEOs, and owners in St. Louis, and for me, well beyond St. Louis. And they've always come up and eventually gotten to the one question they want to get to, and that is, how did you do it? Because I think I want to exit. And we've all had to give them lots of advice and sometimes some hard advice. I mean, I once told somebody, who said, how do I get out in the next 4 to 5 months? And my response was, you leave 50% of the value on the table. Exiting is a multi-year process if truly done right in order to maximize the value. And when I say maximize the value, I don't just mean the finances. The example I'll give is if you want to take your company and you want to ESOP it, so you do an employee stock option purchase plan, so you want to sell it to the employees. Your maximizing value might be that you're actually handing that on to people that you've groomed for a decade or more. That's what matters to you. So in order to do that right and maximize their potential of success, you have to actually go through a real process. So what we do is we actually take it from not just the business perspective. Is the business ready to exit? Are the owners ready to exit? And one of those big things that we always ask owners is, what is next? Similar to the question you asked me, what did I do next? The problem is that too often they give some squirrely answer that says something like, I'm going to go build a house. I'm going to go travel more. No, that's what you're going to do next, not what is next for your life. So we force them into those conversations. They're engaging us. So, we can only force so much, but they've asked us to force them into those conversations. And then we go through a process where we figure out what the value of the business is. Does that fill in their wealth gap from what they currently have today, not counting the business, to what they need to survive for the rest of their life? Does that company fill in that gap? And what is the value of the company today? What could it be if they were best in class? And then over months to years, we get them to where they want to be. And every 90 days, we ask the same question of the company and we ask the same question of them. Are we exiting now? Are you ready? So we start with that. And for us, at the heart of what we do, I look at us as an embedded advisory. We're side by side with you on days. We'll be in there in the trenches with you. We're an embedded advisory firm, and we look at it and say, we may invest, but we're going to help you scale and we're going to help you exit when it's right. And Jim, I got to guess that I think as we go through this process over the next couple of years, I think probably only 50% of our folks are going to exit in that 3-year period. Because as I mentioned earlier, there's these things called the 5 Ds of involuntary exits. One of those is distress. And it's distress of the leadership team, distress of the owner. And that distress means that somebody's like, this place is on fire and I just have to get the hell out. But man, if you can do it and you can make it fun again and you're growing and you get to lead people and you get to actually make their lives better and improve their livelihood, sometimes you don't want to exit. You want to keep going because it got easy. It got fun again.
Wow, that's incredible, man. Do you guys have like a website, or what would like be a good way to for people to get a hold of you if they're kind of curious more on what's going on with you?
Yeah. So our website is Eonova, EONOVA.co. So Eonova. And Eonova is basically the words new era in Latin flipped.
Oh, gotcha. Oh, that's really neat. Did it take you guys a long time to figure out that name, or was it kind of like right away, like, oh, that's it?
Well, one of the beautiful things about what each of us brought to the table is different expertise, much almost going back full circle to our early conversations of you don't have to do everything. And two things happen. One, Aaron Stone is the master strategic planner. He wants you to engage a business operating system. He's a master at it, helps facilitate that. That's part of what we do with our partners and clients. So you have that. So we got forced through strategic planning with Aaron, did an amazing job, define our mission, vision, values, what we call SVAP. And then I've got from Aaron Stone, I got Ross Toohey, who ran a creative agency. And so we took those two disparate skill sets and it was a natural transition to who are we and what represents that. That was Ross's job to take that. So I don't think it took Ross much effort. Aaron and I would still be trying to come up with a name if you gave us another.
Me too. Oh, naming things. Yeah, that I tried to name a company one time. A year later, I was like, "Hey, team, what do you think?" They came up with it in like I don't know, like a couple hours, and I was like, "I love it. That's perfect." You know?
Yeah, we came up with Contigix. My business partner at the time, a guy named Craig McElroy, and I, we came up with it because we were in Vegas and we were going through Latin words that any of us knew. And I only knew one Latin word, which is Contago. And he's like, well, let's just strip off the O and add IX. And then we changed the pronunciation. However, it was Vegas. There might have been a sincere amount of liquid wisdom that we had.
Oh yes, yeah, some bourbon perhaps, maybe.
Perhaps.
Oh, that's great. Oh man. Well, hey, Matthew, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. And thank you for, not going to the beach and hanging them up and kind of living for you and then doing all this amazing stuff for so many people. Um, that's amazing. You inspire me and I absolutely love it. So thanks
Thanks.
again, man. I hope you have a great day. And guys, thanks for tuning in. I will see you next time. Bye guys.